be powerful, how to stand up for themselves, how to have a voice, how to let go of their fears and find their strengths. And it's become more about, let's tear the man down. Let's, that whole BS about toxic masculinity and all these other cool buzz catchphrases that people throw out there in order for them, because all these catchphrases that they come up with is a way to try and shut someone down from speaking. They don't want a man to be able to say his opinion anymore. I'm just talking about the feminist movement as it's.
I feel it's sad. It's sad.
It is.
Because men have such a critical role in our society. Men are men and women are women. And, I'm going to tick off the feminists out there too, because I believe in gender roles. I believe that the man should be the man, and I believe that the woman should be the woman. I'm the soft, nurturing type. I want my man to be the masculine man who is the provider and protector, not provider meaning more money than me or whatever. Just being a provider doesn't just mean financially. Provider means of the family, with emotions, with everything. They're the ones who kind of keep everything together. I don't want to be as strong as a man, and men can handle things more emotionally and in other ways than we as women can. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I need women to understand on the flip side is that when a man gets hurt, he gets hurt more deeply than a woman does in most cases. When a man lets somebody in and they get hurt, it hurts them to the core. And then we get men out there that are bitter and don't really want to be the man anymore because they've been hurt to the core. That doesn't mean we take them and we smash them and we twist them and we kick them while they're down. It means we take men and we build them back up to the men that they're supposed to be. And when we have women in our society that are like, well, I don't know why my husband doesn't want to come home from work. Maybe we need to take a look as a woman and figure out why they don't want to come home from work. It's not because they'd rather hang out with the boys. Maybe it's because they don't want to come home and be nagged at and told how horrible they are and all of these different things that we've been taught as women to do to the men in our life. Maybe if we came home and actually, if they came home and we said, hey, so how was your day? Tell me about it. What was good? What was bad? Instead of, why didn't you take out the trash before you left?
Yeah, it's, I wish I had it. Someone had once asked me in an interview, what is it that a man really wants from a woman? And my response.
You posted on this recently.
Yeah, actually I did. I recopied it. Should have pulled it up, but basically, and I think most real men feel this way, is because man, when a man's vulnerable, when he lets that down and he opens himself up, especially his heart, women, you have the opportunity to really strengthen his foundation and encourage him to build something even greater than he could ever build on his own. Or you have the opportunity to absolutely throw as many cracks into that foundation as you can. And I think it goes both ways too. Women are the same way when they're open and vulnerable finally as well. But I'll tell you what, because what does a man want? Okay, there's a bunch of physical traits guys might differ on it and throw out there. But for me, the thing that I actually want is I want a partner. I want someone who's at least my equal in some very important but very few foundations. And I want her to excel in things that I want to learn to excel at. I want her to be able to mentor me as much as I mentor her. But the biggest thing I want is I want a safe space to lay my head when I've just gotten the shit kicked out of me by life. When I am absolutely exhausted and I have no spoons left to give, I want to be able to lay my head in her lap and just have her just touch my neck, massage my neck a little, massage my scalp. Let me cry, without feeling like you're going to, belittle me for crying or that you're going to lose respect for me, because I'll be real. Not a lot of guys like to admit it nowadays, because it's like as soon as we show that we have maybe a soft spot or a weak spot, that's where people tend to attack us at. But I've had plenty of moments in my life where I laid there in the fetal position and just bawled, or I sat there on my knees with my head on my bed, just sobbing, absolutely sobbing. I've had moments where I was just completely torn down, and I know what it's like to have your partner see you like that and then just kick the crap out of you because they can, because they had been hurt before, and their job, all they want to do is feel powerful. And in my marriage, we went through a really, really hard trial, and we both handled it different ways. But she would tell me, I don't want to hear you crying. Can you please just shut up? Can you go in the other room? I don't want to hear it. Or she'd get up and leave the room. And we'll talk about some of those things more in another episode, but there was an opportunity there for us to actually grow together, for her to even carry some of the weight for a little bit, but she didn't want to. She didn't want anything to do with it. And it's excruciating to pick yourself back up all by yourself. And it's even more excruciating to do so when you're actually in a marriage where you're supposed to be doing it together. That's my take on that. But ladies, if you have a man that's willing to be vulnerable and open with you, that is an opportunity to build something amazing together, and help him fill in some of the cracks that might be there in his foundation already, and just strengthen and lift him up.
And you're right on the flip side with women as well. If women actually allow their guard to come down and be vulnerable, and that is a point where they can either be crushed or they can soar. And I think that that's partly just human nature, really, is if we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and we've taken the walls down and we're literally bare and naked in front of somebody. If you're not with somebody that can really be trusted, that is where you can absolutely be destroyed.
Yeah. And I don't think you could actually be truly vulnerable until you learn to be independent.
That's true.
Stephen Covey talks about how there's three types of relationships. There's dependence, independence, and then interdependence. Dependence being like when you're a baby, you're dependent on everyone for everything anyways. And then you're supposed to grow out of that and into independence, which is really like teenage and 20s. But then once you gain your independence and gain yourself and gain control and power over your thoughts and your emotions and what's written in your book of agreements, then you start to get to a point which is the most powerful type of being that you can, and that's interdependent relationships with someone that you choose to be in that with. And independent people can only go so far. So when a man says he doesn't need a woman in his life, okay, well, yeah, you'll be able to survive till you die without that, and you'll be able to take yourself as far as you can take yourself. Women say that too. Oh, I don't need a man in my life. Sure, same thing. You're only going to take yourself as far as you can take yourself. But there's something, they call it about being equally yoked. So you have like oxen. You have an oxen that can pull a ton on its own, 2,000 pounds. And this one over here also pulls, 2,000 pounds on its own, a ton. So you think putting them together, they'd both be able to do 2 tons. But when you put them together and they're equally yoked, they can do 4 tons.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Right.
So it's like when you have that kind of a relationship with a significant other and you're equally yoked together pulling, you're able to do 4 times the amount that you'd be able to do on your own.
Mm-hmm. 1 + 1 = 4.
Yep.
Basically. Yeah. I think that it is interesting the way that things have kind of come about where like there's still men out there who believe that the woman's role is to take care of everything at home and cook and clean and now work and do all of these things. And then there's women out there who don't believe they should have to do anything and the man should treat them like a princess. And, I want to go on vacations and I want everything paid for me. And I want, a maid and I want a chef and I want this and I want that. And it's your job to do that for me. Sorry, that doesn't make a man a man. Okay. It doesn't. And I know people in my life that have that whole theory of that's what men are for, is to make their life a pampered life. And I get really, really frustrated by that. I really do. In a true partnership, and I know you agree with this, in a true partnership of a man and a woman, everybody pitches in no matter what it is. Oh, you had a rough day at work. Let me take care of this. Oh, you had a really trying day. Let me help with this. And having that partnership in life is what kind of makes the world go round in today's day and age. Now, back in the day when you could totally support yourself on one income, Okay, maybe the male role was this because it was a man's world at the time, and maybe the female role was this. But times are different now. Everybody has to work in order to survive. It just is what it is, unless we're all independently wealthy, right? I mean,
or you live in a van down by the river, which there's nothing wrong with.
There's nothing wrong with that either. But, you know, like in most people's lives, you have a 2-income family. So how do you have a 2-income family and one person is still expected to do everything over here? Whether that's the male or the female. I know relationships out there where literally they both work. And then when they come home, the husband does all of the cooking and the cleaning and everything. And the wife doesn't know how to do any of that. And I always find that interesting too. I'm like, it's a partnership. Like, it's not his job to completely do that. And it's not your job to completely do that. It's a partnership.
It's an ebb and flow. It's each day is completely different, and you've got to be able to work through it. And you know what? There's going to be days where you're both absolutely exhausted, and you're just going to say, you know what? No one's doing the dishes tonight.
Yeah.
You need to go to bed with dirty dishes in the sink. I know it's going to drive some OCD people nuts, but or you both pitch in and do it together. I mean, that's the thing, is there's no set way of doing it. But
right.
the biggest problem I see with relationships, and maybe this is getting a little bit off topic, but by the time we are looking at a marriage partner, we have been inundated with so many ideas of what a man is, a woman is, a wife is, a husband is, from when we're young. I mean, our parents first start teaching it, and then we see our grandparents or our aunts and our uncles. We start seeing these other relationships out there, and we're slowly writing, okay, yeah, I believe this, this is what I want from a marriage. And then we meet someone and we compare our books of beliefs or of agreements and go, oh, you believe like I do, and I believe like you do, and I believe a woman's role is this, and I believe a man's role is this. And then you start negotiating. And this is what most relationships are, is really about negotiations and who's the stronger one, who has the greatest need, because they're the ones that'll end up being controlled in the relationship and give up more of their beliefs, and who's strong enough and powerful enough to meet those needs and force the negotiations to go more in their way. But eventually it all becomes negotiating. This is what I think a woman should be. This is what I think a man should be. And you end up if you can negotiate well enough between the two of you, you move on to the next step, which is marriage. And then the real negotiation begins, because after the honeymoon phase, the real book of agreement comes out and goes, oh yeah, this is what I was really believing. And your whole job is to do this and be the woman that I want you to be. And then that's what most fights are over. It's not really over anything of absolute substance. It's over my version of who you're supposed to be, and you're not meeting that. And that's absolutely destroys people. Or you end up being 70, 80 years old, watching Wheel of Fortune every night, going to bed at 5 o'clock and waking up at 4 o'clock and repeating it. And you just kind of survive till you die.
Right. Which isn't enough for me.
I don't want that. No. I need depth.
So let me ask you a question. I used to make a statement thinking that this was a good thing to the men in my life. The statement was, I don't need you in my life. I choose for you to be in my life. What does that statement say to a man?
To me or to?
Well, what does it say to you first? You're the one who's here.
I guess a lot of it would depend on where it's coming from, because you could either be saying it and you don't really mean it and you're trying to convince yourself of it, or it could be because you're trying to hurt me enough and scare me enough to give you what you want. You know what I mean? It's all about the context of it, because, for me, growing up, feeling abandoned by my mother, who basically ran out on us when I was little. I had that kind of emptiness in me. That used to be one of my greatest fears, would be that I would lose my woman. I would lose my wife. Like, she would pull. And so she was able to actually use that to get me to change and get me to do what she wanted to do and get me to agree with her and get me to stop arguing with her. And it wasn't until I conquered it that was able to be used as leverage. So I guess it would depend on where that statement was coming from. Because if you're coming from a place of empowerment and you tell me that as an empowered man, that, hey, look, baby, I love you. I really do. And this right here, I can't have it in my life because I want to be a strong, empowered woman. And I think it's